have two I have two interrelated meditations written by Howard Thurman. The first one is called Meditations of the Heart. It is easy to pretend to understand what one does not understand. Often, the degree to which we oppose a thing marks the degree to which we do not understand it. Sometimes we use our opposition to an idea to cover our own ignorance. We express our dislike for things, sometimes for people, when we do not understand the things we pretend to dislike. When we do not know the people for whom we have the antagonism. If I knew you and you knew me, and each of us could clearly see that inner light divine, the meaning of your heart and mine, I'm sure that we would differ less and clasp our hands in friendliness if you knew me and I knew you. The second reading is called I Want to Be Better. The concern which I lay bare before God today is my need to be better. I want to be better than I am in my most ordinary day-to-day contacts with my friends, with my family, with my casual contacts, my business relations, with my associates in work and play. I want to be better than I am in the responsibilities that are mine. I am conscious of many petty resentments. I am conscious of increasing hostility towards certain people. I am conscious of the effort to be pleasing for effect, not because it is a genuine feeling on my part. I am conscious of a tendency to shift to other shoulders burdens that are clearly my own. I want to be better in the quality of my religious experience. I want to develop an honest and clear prayer life. I want to develop a sensitiveness to the will of God in my own life. I want to develop a charitableness toward my fellows that is greater even than my most exaggerated pretensions. I want to be better than I am. I lay bare this need and this desire before God in the quietness of this moment. If I knew you and you knew me, and each of us could clearly see by that inner light divine the meaning of your heart and mine, I'm sure that we would differ less and clasp our hands in friendliness. If you knew me and I knew you. The title of my sermon today comes from a segment of Howard Thurman's Meditations of the Heart. It is both a statement and a question. If you knew me and I knew you. If you knew me, would you hurt me? If you knew me, would you judge me? If you knew me, would you break my bones? If you knew me, could you see me? If you knew me, would you see me? If you knew me, would I be different to you? If you knew me, could we be allies? If only they knew me is a statement that runs through my head a million times. Recently at work, a staff member asked me, "What happened to you? You're so different now, so rebellious." It's funny, mostly because this kind of thing has happened to me a lot. Honestly, I don't think I've changed at all, but it's not uncommon how long it takes for people to really see me. When you're a minister, you have to acknowledge that some people will never like you. Some people may even always hate you. And most of those people will never know you. It's my job to make space for the suffering that my job has created. As a clergy person, I will always be seen through the lens, at least initially, of each person's lifetime of experiences with the church. And sometimes that's a good thing. People associate me with fond family memories and church picnics and a clergy person who loved and cared for them. But sometimes I am a symbol of deep and traumatic pain. I am the placeholder of something that wounded them so deeply, I can't even begin to imagine the scars they carry. And yet each day I come to work and I am myself. I am goofy and weird. I am playful and loud. I am silly and I swear a lot and I laugh all the time. Working with adults with developmental disabilities has given me a perspective that I had lost. The perspective is this: some people will see you, and when they do, it is absolutely worth the trials and sadness of everyone that didn't. And from them, from these people that see me, I want to be better. And this is where I want to share more of Howard Thurman's wisdom. To be better is a process, a spiritual practice. For some, this idea is complicated or difficult because it implies some sense of holy being entwined in an interaction. But as I plan to use it here today, a spiritual practice is that which you frame it to be: a practice, a commitment to the spirit of your own personhood. So I'll say it again. A spiritual practice is a commitment to the growth of your own spirit. This month, the theme has been on Sabbath. Sabbath is simply a day of rest, a day to abstain from work, and for some, a time to devote to one's faith. Every Sunday, this community honors the traditional place of Sabbath in a person's life, a day to honor and celebrate our faith. It's funny, Sunday will never be my Sabbath. Sunday is a day of work. but it's also a time of companionship. I love words, as you know, and the meaning of companion is quite lovely. It comes from the word pan in Latin for bread, originally used to describe someone with which you shared a meal. And I immediately thought of the potluck tradition of UU churches, something I miss deeply in my heart. It taps into my spiritual desire to feed and care for those that I love. It taps into my extroverted passion for lively conversation and my soul's deep yearning for laughter. COVID has made even the idea of coffee hour scary. And that fear kept us not just physically apart, but emotionally distant. Every Sunday, I go to my campus and I put on a mask. And then I try to provide spiritual and emotional care to people who have no words to express themselves. When I began this sermon, I asked you to think about what it means to know someone. I asked you to rethink Sabbath as spiritual practice. And I challenged you to accept becoming better as that spiritual practice. Here's what my new community has taught me. You don't need words to know someone. In fact, words are only 7% of how we communicate. The other 93% is experienced in the tone of our voice and the language of our body. Every Sunday, I companion with my individuals. I listen to them not just with my ears, but with my eyes. I watch to see the things that make them light up with excitement, the things that make them laugh with their whole body. In this context, being better for them means rejecting the golden rule to treat others as you would like to be treated, and instead replacing it with the platinum rule. Treat others as they would like to be treated. Can you do that? Can you find places in your life where you have space to hear someone, to see someone, to maybe know someone as they would like to be known? It is a challenge that Howard Thurman made clear, as he so eloquently put it. I want to develop a charitableness toward my fellows that is even greater than my most exaggerated pretensions. I want to be better than I am. I don't want you to be something you are not. And not just for yourself. I want you to the best of who you are, for each other and every person you encounter. Our third principle says it best. We pledge acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Acceptance of who we are right now in this very moment. And encouragement to be better than we are. Better for ourselves and the world community around us. Adaptable to the needs you see when you really see someone. I never thought I would sing Kumbaya, my Lord, every Sunday. I never thought I would be challenged to create craft projects that match my sermon message. I have made turtles from paper plates and flowers from yarn, and I have decorated more foam and wooden crosses than I ever thought possible. And I have never felt more capable of meeting the spiritual needs of my community than I do right now. Thank you for the love and wisdom this congregation provided me to be the minister I am now. Amen.
Thank you, Collie. That was a treat, as always. We feel privileged that you think of this community as a part of who you are and who you have become, and I think it acknowledges on both our parts, from your direction and our direction, that we are still connected, even if we don't have potlucks together. So, thank you. And now, if you will join, standing as you know, in hymn number 86, Blessed Spirit of My Life. And now the usual announcement that if you are FaceTiming, if you want to see, what is it? The Zoomies out there, you can transmit a donation to the fellowship electronically, or you can mail it as per our announcement, and we can enjoy the in-part, the roomy part, not the Zoomy part, but the roomy part. I borrowed that from NPR. We're going to have a little thing. If I quit talking, we'll have it. We'll have a little offertory by Nancy. Now, if you would join me in blessing the offering, let this be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place, which is so sacred to many of us, a community of memory and hope, for we are the keepers of the dream. And Collie, do you have closing words for us?
I do have closing words. These are from sort of a queer theology website called Infleshed. It's called Let Us Rest. God of Sabbath, God of rest, God who wandered off into the wilderness when everything became too much. Help us listen to the needs of our bodies, of our souls, of our dreams, of the communities we belong to. You did not create us in the image of machines, in the image of production, and in the image of never stop. We are created in the image of freedom, of beauty, of love, of compassion, of potential for deep and intimate relationship. May we question all that would have us trade in the potential of our becoming for the ability to make more, sell more, buy more, be more. May we challenge all the structures organizing our lives to pit survival against creativity, individual against collective, private against public, working to meet basic needs against the ability to live abundantly in the relationship and rest. May we commit to boundaries, to breaks, to disrupting patterns of productivity at all costs. May we embrace what you have told us. Before we were born, you delighted in us. Our value, our belovedness, our worth cannot be subtracted by doing less or added to by achieving more. Give us the courage to believe it, the will to practice it, and the faith to overcome the system that keeps others from the ability to do so as well.
Now we'll turn it over to Kali to lead a discussion with, she doesn't need any introduction.
Hey, Kali, this is Bruce.
Good morning.
Good morning. I really appreciated your message today. It's a very good one, in my opinion. And it made me think of several of my actually high school classmates that are so into the negative aspects of QAnon and those kind of things. And I've tended to just not communicate with them in order not to communicate anger and frustration and those kinds of things. And not take the risk to say, hey, I don't agree with some of these things, but I don't want you to, I think that I hate you. And I just don't know for sure how to go about that still, but I still want to. And you've hopefully moved me back onto the path of trying in some way. Thanks.
I appreciate that, Bruce, a great deal. I read a really wonderful, there's a Unitarian Universalist chaplain called George Tiger, and he has some writings on Worship Web. He has a really lovely one that he put out, I think it's called The Buddha's Tobacco. And at the end of it, he talks about how being in the midst of war in the Middle East, he realizes there's still these moments of amazing beauty. And if you could just hold that, this idea that like, if we can acknowledge that the bad moments are there and the good moments are there, but that they're always going to move, it allowed him this space to be like, okay, well, not everything is bad. And I need to hold that right now to make it through this time. Maybe you could find something with your friends that still like you both love. Just do that one thing.
I may come back to that very thought, but I want others to have an opportunity to talk.
Yeah. I had one online here. Kali, your platinum rule. I really like that because I always said I practice golden rule medicine, and that was my goal. And in thinking of the platinum rule, it really brought up to me the gender spectrum and pronouns. And I realized the platinum rule is something I need to seek in terms of respecting people's pronouns. I don't do it unintentionally, but that's a good goal for me. And I think platinum rule in terms of the adjusting of us old people to these new things is definitely something I want to do.
Thank you. I realized it a lot with the residents I've been working with because the things that I would need for spiritual care don't match what they would need. And I can't say I'm doing them justice if I'm like, oh, well, I'm treating them the way I would want to be treated. It's not enough sometimes. So it's a good point. Good morning to the Ian, Grace, and Sonia crowd.
Sonia? Okay.
I just want to announce that
Excellent.
there's a Pride today, and it's starting at Whitney Commons.
It's a Pride Parade next weekend. Next Saturday.
Next weekend. Way to go, Sonia. Good job.
So it'll be at 10 o'clock, and you are going to meet together with the parade group at
Wells Fargo Bank.
Wells Fargo.
And then parade down Main Street. And then there's an event in Whitney Commons for the rest of the day. So Pride, Saturday, June 5th. People can put that on their calendars if they would like.
Yeah, yay! And tell everyone.
I might go next if that's okay. I have a beef and
That would
I
be a Matt.
have a thought. So my beef is with Ian and Sonia. Ian and Sonia, my beef with you is that you have intentionally or unintentionally taken Naomi's principal. Next year, the principal from Highland Park is going to your school, and I'm not happy about it. So that is my beef. It's the same beef, yes. Yeah. My thought is in regards to one of the things that you talked about, Kali, and it was I think the statistic was 7% of what we communicate is with words. And many moons ago, I taught public speaking at a junior high school, and my textbook had a similar statistic. I think it was 10% in the textbook I was using. And I guess I just kind of took it on faith that that's accurate, but I don't know what you guys' thoughts on that are. Like, maybe you can communicate that I like you. Maybe you can communicate that I'm hungry without words. But bigger things like Bruce talking about how do you address your friends that are falling down the QAnon hole? How do you do that with body language? Like my thought is, I wonder, I don't know, is that an accurate number? I don't know if we can actually communicate with people without words, and I don't know how to do it with
We
people.
do, we actually do.
Yeah.
How can we? We do, we're doing it all the time.
Right, but how am I going to convince somebody that QAnon is not an accurate worldview by smiling at them or by making food for them, right? Like we can definitely communicate. We do communicate. I just don't know if we can convince people to come back to sanity with body
I
language.
get what you're saying.
You know, Matt. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say to Matt that like one of the interesting things, just like watching you right now, your body language is open. Instead of your arms crossed across your chest, they're out in front of you, like you're holding them open to somebody. Like, and that simple communication allows a person to realize that, like, oh, hey, this guy you want to talk to that room, and I know that because I know you. And for me, I think it comes down more than anything to the intonation of my voice. Right now I work with 200 residents, and I'd say about 70% of my campus is nonverbal. They respond dramatically to intonation. They know whether to trust somebody by the tone of your voice. They know whether they want to go somewhere with you by the tone of your voice. They pick up on the slightest frustration in the tone of your voice. And so I raise that because I've become more hyper vigilant in my conversations of like, how am I responding to this person? Like, are they picking up on the fact that I am tired as heck and do not want to be here today, even though I thought I was masking it? Because believe me, I have people who will know instantly that I don't want to be there. So I just raised that to you. Like, you know, how do the people who you want to bring back to sanity, like how patient are you with them in your tone and your physical presence?
I totally agree with everything.
That's all.
I just, in my brain, that number is 10% needs to be more like 30%. Like, it just seems too low to me.
I'm one of those people who absolutely like picks up on intonations and voices really easily. Like when like one of my friends is really upset or they don't even have to be any kind of upset, like hardly at all. Like, and I will hear it and I'll just immediately be like, what's wrong? What's happening? Or like specifically with my mom, she'll have the slightest different intonation in her voice and I'll be like, don't yell at me.
And I'm not yelling.
And she won't be yelling at all. They'll be like, don't yell at me. So I definitely understand like the nonverbal, like not necessarily nonverbal, but the intonation thing, I guess. I had more to say, but I forgot. You were right.
I'd just like to say, Matt, I'm right with you. That 7% statistic made me go, oh, because words are so important to me. They're very important. But while you were talking, I just thought of something. Communicating and convincing are two different things. And I can easily believe communication is only 7% words. Convincing is more percent.
Oh, yeah.
Convincing is as important as communicating. Like you said, I can communicate I care for you. And maybe that's more important than you believe something really stupid. which you could use better words for. But anyway, I'm with you. I'd fight that notion, but I'm going to try to communicate more instead of convince.
I'm back. This is what I was thinking of earlier, and I even said this last week, or I know several months ago. But I had an experience when I was on hurricane duty, and I was traveling with a young pediatric psychiatrist as my partner that day, and we went to a fishing village near Galveston, and it was a Vietnamese fishing village. And we came, and their boats were all slung onto the land and so on. The lady who owned it came out and greeted us and asked us into her home, and we talked. And as we were leaving, she said, thank you for coming. And we said, well, yeah, that's what we do. That's what we're here for. That's what the Red Cross is all about. And she looked at me, and I had my boonie hat on from Nam. And she said, no, thank you for coming to Vietnam, or we wouldn't be here today. You saved us. And in 40 years, I had never at that time heard a thank you about that. And I realized that I had shut myself off to any good that came of that experience. I hated war. I hated that war. And shutting off to that shut me off to some good things. And I just thought, well, that applies to my friends that I have a hard time connecting with now. I'm shutting myself off very much, and that makes a difference. And so thanks again.
Victor, you haven't shared yet.
I will.
I just wanted to comment on the body language. If I can formulate my thoughts, I think maybe reading each other and giving someone what they need comes from the intent to do that. So your body language and your tone is going to come from observing and listening in your intent. And even if you don't get a resolution, maybe there's an exchange that maybe the other person will understand your intent is to connect instead of to win. And there's a book called Stroke of Insight about, and when she had her stroke, the logical part of her brain was destroyed and the intuitive part became very dominant. And like when she was in the hospital, she could tell when someone, an orderly, a nurse, a doctor, when they came, she couldn't understand anything the medical community was saying, but she could feel people's intent, whether they wanted to help her and nurture her or whether they didn't care or actually were. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, is this all comes from paying attention and intent and trying to have an exchange that's more meaningful and less conflicted. Not that you'll always be successful.
So I will just say that I really liked what you had to say this morning. I found it inspiring to think about the Sabbath as something we do to make ourselves spiritually better. And that the idea of being able to reach out to people with whom we have issues seems to me a very important message. And what I was reminded of was something that occurred many years ago. We were 3-4 families having a barbecue, and it might have been Memorial Day, I don't remember that. But there was a Black child among the other children, and the dad happened to be Black. And the other kids, I can't remember if it was one or more, said, "Oh, we're not going to play with you. You know, you're."
She said, I don't like you.
I don't like you. Thank you. Yeah. And so the dad, who it was beautiful the way he did this. He said, "Just get to know my son and you will like him."
Mhm.
And that just fixed it. And that again reminded me of your message this morning about if you know me. Yeah. So thank you for that.
Hi, Collie.
Good morning, Cal.
Welcome home.
Thank you.
Good timing. I was just, thinking about a lot of things. One is just, it really made me think about, it's not either or, it's not what we say or how we say it, it's both. And the question that I wish I could remember more often is, what's the whole message if I'm communicating to somebody? Because sometimes I'm aware of what I'm feeling, and often I'm not, and always both get communicated. And I'm just thinking of examples over the last week dealing with some tough situations, and with lots of good intent, and what it means to add the nonverbal to I'm on your side and I'm really trying to help. The nonverbal maybe sometimes says, and it's really frustrating because you just don't appreciate that near enough.
Mm-hmm.
Or acknowledge how hard I'm working, or this is scary, which are all important parts of the message. And I think part of the reminder for me, and you've really helped me think about that, is sometimes to realize part of my nonverbal, and to verbalize that, because that's often one of the most important things that needs to be communicated and put on the table. But I'm not saying it. I'm just showing what looks like irritation. Maybe what I'm feeling is that this is kind of scary. If I say that, that's a connection. If I show it, it can be felt as anger or frustration. So I appreciate it.
Don't you think that has a little bit to do with our I have a really good friend at work who went through some stuff recently, and he's been talking about this like sort of switch that turned on in him that was like, oh, maybe it's okay to be vulnerable. I think we have this like hostility to vulnerability sometimes, and that fear keeps us from offering somebody a point of connection, because if they don't take it, then we feel like an ass.
Yeah, I agree.
It's kind of like feelings are like a layer of onions, for example. There's a number of, and some of the more deep feelings and more meaningful, and the ones you want to get out, are down in the lower layers. And when they move to be expressed, what pops out first is the anger or fear or frustration.
Yeah.
And then
Exactly.
room for the others to come.
There's like the layers, right, that you use to protect yourself, and you have to peel them back to share the layers that are connectable and
Yeah.
meaningful. Any other
I
thoughts?
just wanted to say that some of the body language that we have is also something that we've inherited. For instance, I think about one of my sons, I have two of them. His body language and facial expressions are so typical of his father's, whose were so typical of his father. And some of those expressions aren't very inviting. They can't seem to help it.
That's a really good point. I mean, I think about something as simple as whether or not you grew up in a home where people hugged. I mean, I grew up in like the most hug home. So like all of my friends, like whether they wanted to or not, are conditioned huggers now. So, but that's a thing that is taught, and you embrace it or don't. And it's hard sometimes to move to something else than what you were conditioned to do.
Well, thank you for.
I think of a really silly.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Karen got me watching King of the Hill lately. I don't know. It's just like a time suck, but we've been watching King of the Hill, which is like about a Texan. And one of the things that he was conditioned in his life when you watch different episodes, even though it's a cartoon, is if he's ever happy, everything's going to implode. And I think about how something like that just dramatically changes the way a person approaches the world around them. They could be innately a really happy person, but if they've been conditioned to just shut that off, it does. It's kind of a silly example, but those learned behaviors are really hard to overcome. So anyway, that was just my funny.
That's a good one. Well, thank you for a lovely and thought-provoking talk, and a nice discussion, and a nice time to be together doing our soul work. So we will extinguish the candles and say thank you to Kali, and see you soon. Bye. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you. Good day.
Take care, guys.